All right, let's talk about Social Security. We're going to tackle two huge questions today. First, there's the immediate one that's probably on your mind, especially with all the talk about government shutdowns. Are my payments safe? But then there's the bigger, looming question. What does the future of Social Security even look like? And could you really be forced to retire 2 years later than you thought? Let's get into it.
So, here's how we're going to break this down. We'll start with that urgent shutdown question. Then we'll zoom out and look at this 2033 deadline that's got everyone in Washington talking. We're going to dig into that really controversial idea to raise the retirement age, figure out who that would actually impact the most, and then look at some other solutions. And we'll wrap up with the big choice America has to make.
Okay, first things first. Let's tackle the question that's probably causing the most stress right now.
I mean, for millions of us, this is the big one, right? When you hear the government is shut down, your first thought is probably, wait, what about my check? What happens to the money I'm counting on?
Okay, so here's some good news. We can give you a straight answer on this. The Social Security Administration has made it official. Yes, your payments will keep coming right on schedule. The money is safe.
But, and there's always a but, isn't there? It's not exactly business as usual. So while the checks are still going out, the agency itself is running on a skeleton crew. You'll definitely feel that if you need to pop into a local office for something.
So what can you still do? Well, the SSA says the really critical stuff is still happening. You can apply for benefits, file an appeal, or, change your address or direct deposit info. But some of the other things like getting a proof of benefits letter, that's going to have to wait until the shutdown is over.
Okay, so the shutdown is a temporary problem. A headache for sure, but temporary. But it's happening at the same time as this much, much bigger, more permanent challenge that Social Security is facing.
And to really get this, we need to talk about something called the OAS Trust Fund. The easiest way to think about it is like a giant savings account. For years and years, the system took in more money from payroll taxes than it paid out. That extra cash went straight into this fund. But now the opposite is happening. And this right here is the heart of the problem. It all comes down to demographics. Think about this. Back in 1960, you had about 5 workers paying in for every single person taking money out. Today, it's down to just 2.7 workers. And it's only going to get smaller. Fewer workers supporting more retirees, that's the core issue right there.
All that pressure leads us to this one really important year, 2033. This isn't some random number. The Social Security Administration's own experts are saying that's the year the trust fund, that giant savings account we just talked about, is expected to run dry.
So what happens then, when the savings account hits zero? This is super important. Social Security doesn't just stop. The money still coming in from today's workers can still pay benefits. But, and this is a huge but, it can only cover about 77% of what's promised. So if Congress does absolutely nothing, everyone's benefits get an automatic 23% cut. Just like that.
Right, nobody wants that to happen. So to avoid falling off that cliff, politicians are kicking around a few ideas. And probably the biggest, and definitely the most controversial one, is to just make us all work longer. Here's how it works now. If you were born in 1960 or later, your full retirement age is 67. This new proposal would slowly push that up to 69. The logic is pretty simple, right? Get people to pay into the system for more years, and then collect benefits for fewer years.
Now, they wouldn't just flip a switch overnight. The idea is to phase it in really gradually. It would start sometime in the early 2030s, and the age would just creep up by 2 months every 2 years, until it eventually hits 69 for people who plan on retiring in the 2040s.
But, calling it a simple 2-year delay, that's not the whole story. When you look at how this would actually affect real people, it gets complicated. The impact is totally different depending on who you are and what you do for a living. Just look at the analysis. This change does not hit everyone the same way. If you're in a physically demanding job, think construction, nursing, you name it, working 2 extra years is a whole different ballgame. And it really hits lower-income workers harder because they often have shorter life expectancies, which means they'd end up collecting benefits for fewer years overall.
And that really gets to the core of why so many people are against this. An expert group at Stanford put it perfectly. They said, raising the retirement age isn't just a delay, it's basically a cut to your lifetime benefits. You end up getting fewer payments over your lifetime from a system you paid into your entire career.
So you can imagine, with such real-world consequences, the whole debate gets super political really fast. To kind of get a feel for this, we actually looked at the public comments on the Social Security Administration's own website. And wow, the divide is stark. You've got one person pointing the finger squarely at one party saying the Republicans are at fault. And then, literally in the same comment section, someone else says the complete opposite. No, the Democrats are holding the government hostage. It just goes to show how deeply divided people are, which, makes it incredibly hard for lawmakers to find any common ground on this stuff.
But here's the thing. It's really important to remember that making people work longer isn't the only option on the table. There are other ideas out there for fixing this 2033 problem, and they focus more on the money coming in, not just the money going out.
So what are they? Well, one big idea is to raise or even completely get rid of the cap on income that gets taxed for Social Security. Right now, high earners only pay into the system on a portion of their income. Other ideas include a tiny increase in the payroll tax for everybody, or changing the benefit formulas for the highest earners, or even means testing, where the wealthiest folks would just get a smaller check.
So, all of this brings us back to a really fundamental choice. Look, government shutdowns, they come and go. But that 2033 deadline, it's getting closer every single day. And at some point, lawmakers have to make a decision.
And really, it all boils down to 2 main paths, right? Path number 1, we ask people to work longer, which, as we've seen, is really a cut in lifetime benefits. Or path number 2, we adjust the taxes, asking people, especially high earners, to pay a little more into the pot to keep the whole thing going for everybody.
It's a choice between tweaking the benefits or tweaking the revenue. And believe me, both sides have very passionate supporters and very fierce critics. So the question we're left with is, with that 2033 deadline speeding towards us, which path is Congress actually going to take to make sure Social Security is there for all of us?